So let's start the play. I will tell you the play in the summary type because it is difficult to read the play word by word. So I will explain you the main points and the things of the play. So here, first of all, John Taplow, who was about 16-year old and the lower fifth from the English public school, appears at a flat to the Andrew Crocker Harris for end of the term tutorial in the hope to being advanced to the upper fifth. Seeing a box of chocolate, he helps himself to two pieces, eats one, and then either out of the conscience to fear being caught, replace another. Shortly thereafter, Frank Hunter arrives and he, of course, conversation between two become clear. Crocker Harris retiring because of ill health. In this play, who the first scene actually in the set of a school. In the opening, there is a 16-year-old boy, Taplow. He has come to do some extra work for his teacher, to Mr. Crocker Harris, because at the time of examination, for one day he went, he was suffering from fever, so that is why he was not attended the school. So in place of that, he have to do some extra work. So he was coming from some extra work to do for Mr. Crocker Harris. He was waiting for him, and still he still has to arrive. Frank, the another teacher, was a science teacher, was came there, and this after then they both were conversed to each other. So during the conversation, Frank get to know that the Taplow is waiting for his result, which is yet to be handed out. The boy is keen to specialize in the science and hope to get a good result. Mr. Crocker Harris does not declare the result himself, instead requested to the headmaster to declare the result on the last day of the term. The conversation also drives the insight of the Taplow mind. He tells Frank how much he disliked to play the Agamemnon. He confesses that the play is not that bad, but he likes science. Also, he pointed out that Mr. Crocker Harris teach that play very terribly. They have to do the extra work to miss a class a week ago. Certainly, Frank remarks that the Taplow will get his remove for doing extra work. However, Taplow feels different as he is not like other teachers, so such rules don't work with Mr. Crocker Harris. Taplow states. Also, he doesn't appreciate the extra work of a student. As per Taplow, Mr. Harris is different from other teachers. He is strict and inhuman. Moreover, he doesn't tell him their result before the judgment day when the Taplow asks him about the remove. Crocker Harris says that is exactly what he deserved, no less and no certainly more. Frank pointed out that Mr. Crocker Harris is 10 minutes late and Taplow has to chance to leave the play golf. But Taplow looks shocked at his suggestion as he thinks Mr. Crocker Harris might follow him home. Frank envy Mr. Crocker Harris for the influence as he on his student. When Frank asked Taplow that if Mr. Crocker Harris beats them, Taplow replies that he is not the saddest teacher and he is not a person who would beat a student and vent his frustration. Actually, here he wants to describe the quality of his teacher. In spite of all this, he likes Mr. Crocker Harris and narrate an incident when he laughs at the classical joke that Mr. Harris, although he doesn't get it. After that, Mr. Crocker, he wants to reply that what happened on that day. So all these things show that Taplow liked to his teachers, like his rules and regulations. The personality of the teacher was depend on that what the teacher is teaching. Not only that, but what the conduct of the teacher is also influenced. Actually, Taplow makes the fun to Mr. Crocker Harris by saying that he would be better if he were saddest, as they would mean that he has some feelings, but he had heart like a nut. He is heartless. He possesses no feeling at all. Taplow feels that Mr. Crocker Harris is all dried up and hates that people like him. Taplow finds it funny that despite of all the crankiness, he some likes Crocker Harris. Taplow recalls the incident when Mr. Crocker Harris made him as a classic joke, and it was in Latin, so nobody laughed out of sheer courtesy. Taplow laughed at the joke, and this proved to be a bad move of the Taplow because Mr. Crocker Harris made him stand in the class and asked him to explain the joke to the whole class. Just then the door opens and the Mrs. Millie Crocker Harris appears there. Millie Crocker Harris, wife of Mr. Crocker Harris, is a thin woman in her late 30s. She is smartly dressed. Unlike other schoolmaster's wife, she comes in unnoticed. Taplow was still imitating Mr. Crocker Harris. Then, when Mr. Frank noticed her and broke off a sudden, Taplow gets frantic and asks Mr. Frank if Millie Crocker Harris could have heard their conversation. Mr. Frank thinks that she did. Taplow fears that if she tells anything to Mr. Crocker Harris, then he will surely get the bad result. But Millie Crocker Harris asked Taplow if he was waiting for her husband. She further informs him that her husband is busy at the Brussels and might get late. She asks him to leave. Taplow is doubtful and say Mrs. Crocker Harris had particularly asked him to come.